Have you ever been in a mixing session and wish you could transfer over your settings from one mix to another? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how to use the mixer, save, and recall function in Mixbus32c. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nathan from Harrison Consoles, and in a previous video, I showed you how to set up session templates that are ways to store many different session types, whether you're podcasting, songwriting, or recording a full band. And session templates can be a great way to pre-store your track types so you're always ready for recording. But sometimes you're in a session and you want to transfer over settings that you've made from a previous mix session, for instance, and you want to impart those settings onto another existing session. So let's look at the session here on the screen and see what mixer, save, and recall is all about. Okay, so this is a song that I've been mixing on, and this is a darker type metal song. It's got a female vocal lead with also some male screamo type vocals. And we have plenty of electric guitars here, and we have a choir, and we have some bass tracks and plenty of drum tracks, including 6 toms. I mean, that's a pretty big drum kit right there. But regardless of the genre, I typically EQ certain elements pretty much the same way. If you've been mixing drums for any length of time, then you know that a kick drum usually likes a little bit of low bump and maybe a scoop around 400 to 500 hertz to take out some boxiness, and maybe bring up some 3K to 4K to add in some click to your kick drum sound. And instead of going through that process every single time for a new mix, you might just want to save your settings and then recall those in a new session. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and store this mix that I have. So I'm going to go up to Track and then Mix Tools, Mixer, Save, Recall. And we have the option to either locally store this, which is really per session, or we can globally store this and we can access these settings from any session. So most of the time I'm going to do this globally, and we are going to store the mixer settings. Okay, so we can go in here and we can see we can call it a name. So I'm going to call this metal song. We do have the option to store only selected tracks, but I don't have any tracks selected, and we're just going to store the whole session as it is. So now that we have this saved, I'm going to go to another session and bring in my settings from this session. All right, so here's a totally different session, and I'm going to come in and go to Track, Mix Tools, Mixer, Save, Recall, Global, and we're going to recall some mixer settings. So since this is stored globally, I can just go in and say this is my metal song from right here, and press OK. And now we can see that we have the source and we have the destination. So the source are the tracks that we pulled in from the previous mix, and now our destination are all these new tracks right here. So we're going to have to go in manually and match up each track one by one. But there are ways to avoid this, and I'll show you that here in a bit. So for now, we're going to match up the kick, and these are in alphabetical order. So we're going to have to go in and say, I want this kick to line up with that kick. We have a kick sample, which I'm just going to have the same settings for the other kick. We have a snare up and a snare down. So let's see what happens for that. And you don't have to choose anything if you don't want to. You can totally just leave it blank. So actually for snare down, I'm just going to leave it blank, okay? Snare sample, we can have that set to snare. We do have a hi-hat track. Do we have a ride track? Probably not, so I can leave that blank. We do have some toms in here, so I'll set that for T1, T2, and T3. These overheads. We do have a bass amp, so maybe set that to bass DI. You can see our buses are called the same, so those automatically match up. And that's a great time saver for when you know the names of the tracks are the same from session to session. So they just automatically match up. So I'm not going to match anything else up but I'm not going to create groups and sets names from file. That's fine. So now when I press OK, all my settings are transferred over. We can see that our buses are named the same and the plugins are applied as well. If we go to our drum settings here, for example, we can see the EQ is applied accordingly. And we have our bass amp EQ, which is just a little bit of high pass filter and some low pass filtering. We have some high passes on the electric guitars and nothing on the pianos and nothing on the vocals. But that is a really good start so far. And even if this saves you a little bit of time, not having to remember what your EQ settings are and just applying those to a session, then that is really, really great. So now, for example, I can go in and I can store these globally. So I'm going to store that mixer session. And this song is called Mr. Mister, so I'm just going to call this Mr. Song. And now that these are stored, I can actually go back and we can reset the mixer. So check this out. So when I reset the mixer, it's going to get rid of all the fader, mute, solo, all that stuff. We can actually remove the plugins and these sends and inserts. We can get rid of any automation, groups, or VCAs. So I'm just going to go ahead and reset all this. So we didn't get rid of our groups, but everything else about the EQ and the faders are all reset. Looking at the buses, they are named the same, but the plugins have gone away. So just for the sake of example, we can go back in and we are going to recall our mixer settings. So here's our Mr. Song. And now you can see that since our naming scheme is 1-for-1, where we have kick as the source and also kick as the destination, and there's no extra characters or anything in there, then everything pretty much lines up perfectly. So we're not going to create any groups. And the set names from file, they're already named, so I'm not worried about that. So I'm going to press OK. And you can see now that all of our kicks, snares, bass, electric guitars, everything else is already set up and ready to go. So just imagine now that you've recorded 10 songs from the same session using your session template. And now since all the tracks are named the same and they all have the same session template layout, you can easily store and recall your mixer settings and apply that to the rest of the songs for your album or EP, songwriting session, or whatever you're working on. So if you want to see more helpful videos just like this one, be sure to subscribe down below and click the bell. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And be sure to leave a comment. Let me know how you would use the mixer save recall in your next session. Until next time, I'm Nathan from Harrison Consoles, and I'll see you in the next video.